going to talk to you today about video games and the effects it has on children. There are three main points that I'm going to talk to you today about, and that is the cognitive effects that it has on children, how it changes their environmental effects, and their social activities and effects. I'm going to start with the cognitive effects. There are many different cognitive effects that are caused by video games. I just took a few of them. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is directions, how to follow directions. That's a big point that you get in video games because you have to follow the directions on the screen, otherwise you could get lost and you might never reach your objective. And I think you can translate that to pretty much any job you have in today's society. If you don't follow directions, you're not going to get very far and you're not going to climb up in the ladder. The next one is problem solving. In the video game, you have to problem solve, mostly in educational games and RPG games. If you don't solve the problem, you really can't move on to the next chapter, your next mission. And that can be translated into real-world experiences, too. If you can't figure out part of a math problem, you won't be able to move on to the next part of the math problem or even finish the math problem. And that also goes with any major job that you get in today's society. You have to know how to problem solve and figure it out without having to go to your boss. The next one is multitasking. You have to follow a certain path in the game, and you might have to do a whole bunch of certain side missions to get to your main objective of your main mission. And that can be transformed into today's working as well. If your boss gives you multiple things you have to do, you have to be able to manage your time wisely and get all of them done by the time your boss wants you to do them. And then the next group is just kind of a catch-all group, and then would include learning to strategize and anticipation, your management of resources, mapping, pattern recognition, how to judge situations, and practice reading and quantum calculations through educational games. Is pretty much what them ones go through, although RPGs and some other different types of games use them too. But all these factors can go into any upper management position too. You have to be able to do all of them to succeed. Now that I've talked to you about the cognitive effects, I'm going to move on to the environmental, how it can change your child environmentally. There was a study done by a scientist at the University of Rochester. His name was Daphne Balavier. The results of his study show that people who play video games become more attuned to their environment. So an example of this that he gave is you're able to keep visual tabs on friends and crowds. So this could be for your child too. If they get lost in a store or something, they'd be able to pick you out better than a child who hasn't played video games. They're able to navigate better through day-to-day lives. So, I mean, if your child drives, if they're old enough, they're better drivers and be able to navigate through towns and cities better. And then the last thing he said was they're able to read small print better, because on the video games you just have, I mean, the dialogue's so small so it doesn't take up your picture. So they're able to read smaller books or smaller prints on, you know, paperwork that you have to fill out or things of that nature. And the next thing with your environmental is it significantly reduces reaction time without sacrificing accuracy. So you can react much faster, or like what I say it is if you throw a baseball, you can throw it really fast, but you won't lose any accuracy with it at all. And then that ties in with increased hand-eye coordination, fine motor skills, because on a video game you can't sit there and look down at your controller. You have to focus on the screen and just let your hand and your minds work together to accomplish whatever you're trying to do. And on a controller, there's about 12 or 13 different buttons that you have to use periodically throughout when you play, so your hands become attuned to it. And that can translate into anything like keyboarding or anything like that out in the real world. And then I have another study from a Florida hospital in 2013. It says, the brain processes all information and then coordinates with the hands, since all actions are done through the controller or keyboard, which I kind of just talked about. But these skills can be applied to real-world situations like surgical procedure. And I just found that interesting, that if you played video games, you'd have a better success of being a surgeon, able to work on people more meticulously because you have such good hand-eye coordination. And then the last aspect I would like to talk about would be how it affects kids socially. Many games are educational and have lots of areas to offer, but a study done said nearly 60% of frequent gamers play with friends, 33% say they play with siblings, and 25% of kids either play with their parents or a spouse, if you're older. And a lot of these games nowadays, they require kids to play together or cooperative. You can't go through missions unless you talk or play with other kids. And to do that, you actually have to talk with the other person and communicate. Otherwise, it could lead to your team or your other people dying or losing your money. You have to start all over on the game or anything like that. So, and then that teaches teamwork when they get older in real job situations. They'll actually be able to talk and work things out with other people versus just kind of sitting there and doing their own thing. So now that I've talked about all three of the effects that video games have on children, I'd just like to go back over them briefly. So the first one was the cognitive effects, and there was a whole wide variety of them that can help your child. And the next one was the environmental, them being able to, pick people out in a crowd or helps them in any other way there. And then the last one was with other people, their social interactions. And this helps them. Pretty much the main one I think of is teamwork. So when they get up into their older management positions, or even in high school with sports, they're able to work better with other kids and other adults. So overall, I think video games will help children in many aspects of these, but I hope you agree with me. Thank you for listening to me. I hope this changed the way you think about video games.